I'm Stephanie Collins, 34, single mother to my beautiful daughter Lily. Yesterday I confronted my parents about missing her 7th birthday. Their excuse: they'd rather go golfing with friends. For 2 years I've paid them $700 weekly to help with childcare while working 2 jobs to survive. When I questioned their priorities, they laughed in my face. That's when I discovered the ugly truth: they've been using my hard-earned money for luxury purchases while neglecting my child. My own parents betrayed me in the worst possible way. Before I dive into this painful story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family taking advantage of you, hit that like button and subscribe to know you're not alone. Sadly, financial abuse within families happens more often than we think. Let's explore how I discovered the truth and what happened next. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. But when you're drowning, you grab any lifeline thrown your way, even if that lifeline turns out to be an anchor dragging you down. 2 years ago, my life imploded. After 8 years of marriage, Michael left me for his 24-year-old assistant. The divorce was ugly and expensive. I got primary custody of Lily, who was 5 at the time, but the child support barely covered our basic needs. Then, just 3 months later, my company underwent massive restructuring. Despite my stellar performance reviews, my position was eliminated. Suddenly, I was a single mom with no income and dwindling savings. After weeks of unsuccessful job hunting in Boston's competitive market, I made the difficult decision to move back to my hometown in Pennsylvania. The cost of living was significantly lower, and most importantly, my parents lived there. Despite our complicated relationship, they had always adored Lily. Or so I thought. "You can stay with us until you get back on your feet," my mother, Barbara, said over the phone, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. "Your old bedroom is just collecting dust anyway." My father, Robert, added, "Lily needs stability. Family should help family." Those words meant everything to me then. I packed our belongings, terminated our lease, and drove 6 hours with a confused and heartbroken 5-year-old who kept asking when we'd see Daddy again. The first few weeks were surprisingly pleasant. My parents fussed over Lily buying her new toys and clothes. They seemed genuinely happy to have us there. Meanwhile, I pounded the pavement looking for work. The job market in my small hometown wasn't great, but I eventually secured a position as an administrative assistant at a local insurance company. The pay was about half of what I'd been making in Boston, but it was something. However, the hours 8:30 to 5:30 presented a problem with Lily's school schedule. That's when my parents proposed their solution. "We can watch Lily," my mother offered during dinner one night. "Before school, after school, whenever you need." "That's right," my father agreed. "No reason to pay some stranger when family's right here." I was hesitant. "That's a lot to ask. You guys are retired. You should be enjoying yourselves." My mother waved dismissively. "Nonsense. We're not ancient, Stephanie. Besides, it would be nice to have some purpose again." After considering my limited options, I accepted their offer. I found a small, affordable 2-bedroom apartment nearby and insisted on paying them for childcare. We settled on $700 a week, a substantial sum for me but reasonable considering it covered before-school care, after-school care, and occasional evenings when I worked my second job as a waitress at a local restaurant. It was still less than what professional childcare would cost, and I wanted to maintain some dignity in the arrangement. The system worked well initially. Lily would stay at my parents' house before school and they'd pick her up afterward. On evenings I worked at the restaurant. They'd feed her dinner and put her to bed at their place, and I'd pick her up after my shift ended. It was exhausting, but we were getting by. As Lily's 7th birthday approached, she couldn't contain her excitement. It would be her first birthday party in our new town, and she desperately wanted to make friends. We planned a small celebration at a local park, nothing extravagant but special. "Can I invite my school friends Mommy and Miss Patterson from next door, and Grandma and Grandpa?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Of course, sweetheart. Anyone you want," I promised, mentally calculating how many extra shifts I'd need to cover the costs. 2 weeks before the party, I noticed some changes in my parents' lifestyle. My mother was sporting a new designer handbag that I knew cost at least $1,200. My father mentioned they'd joined the local country club, which had an initiation fee of several $1,000s plus monthly dues. They'd also renovated their kitchen with top-of-the-line appliances and granite countertops. I pushed aside my confusion. Maybe they'd been saving for retirement longer than I realized. Perhaps an investment had paid off. Besides, they deserved some comfort in their golden years. After all, they were helping me when I needed it most. When I dropped off the party invitation at their house, my mother placed it on the fridge with a smile. "We wouldn't miss it for the world," she assured me, squeezing Lily's shoulders. "It's going to be the best birthday ever, right, Pumpkin?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Grandma said she might get me a special surprise, Mommy." I smiled, grateful for my parents' support during this difficult time. If only I'd known what was coming. The day before Lily's birthday, I worked a double shift at the restaurant to afford her presents. She had her heart set on a particular dollhouse and a new bicycle, and I was determined not to disappoint her. My feet ached and my back throbbed as I served table after table, but the tips were generous. By the end of my shift at 11 p.m., I had enough cash to buy everything Lily wanted and still pay for decorations and cake. I stopped by a 24-hour supermarket on my way home, filling my cart with streamers, balloons, party hats, and ingredients for Lily's favorite chocolate cake. The cashier gave me a sympathetic smile as I checked out past midnight. "Special occasion?" she asked. "My daughter's 7th birthday tomorrow," I replied, stifling a yawn. "You're a good mom," she said, handing me my receipt. "I hope she has a wonderful day." I arrived home around 1 a.m. and spent another hour wrapping presents and hiding them in my closet before collapsing into bed. 4 hours later, my alarm blared. Despite my exhaustion, I dragged myself to the kitchen to bake Lily's cake before she woke up. By 9 a.m., our small apartment was transformed. Colorful streamers hung from the ceiling, balloons floated in every corner, and a "Happy Birthday Lily" banner stretched across the living room wall. The cake, chocolate with strawberry filling and buttercream frosting, sat proudly on the kitchen counter, surrounded by presents wrapped in shiny paper with oversized bows. When Lily finally woke up and saw the decorations, her squeal of delight made all my exhaustion worthwhile. She danced around the apartment, touching everything with wonder in her eyes. "When are my friends coming, Mommy and Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked between bites of her special birthday breakfast pancakes, shaped like the number 7. "The party starts at noon, honey," I explained. "We'll head to the park at 11 to set up." As we prepared for the party, I called my parents to confirm they were coming. No answer. I left a voicemail reminding them about the celebration and asking them to bring the folding chairs they'd promised. By 11:30, we were at the park. I had set up a picnic table with a festive tablecloth, plates, cups, and party favors. The cake was carefully placed in the shade to prevent melting. Noon arrived, and with it came Lily's classmates and their parents. Miss Patterson from next door showed up with a beautifully wrapped gift. Everyone seemed to be having a good time, but I couldn't help checking my phone every few minutes. No calls, no texts from my parents. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa?" Lily asked repeatedly, her eyes scanning the park entrance each time someone arrived. "They're probably just running late, sweetie," I reassured her, though uneasiness was growing in my stomach. "Let's play some games while we wait." We proceeded with the party activities: a scavenger hunt, pin the tail on the donkey, and a water balloon toss. Lily participated half-heartedly, her eyes constantly darting toward the park entrance. By the time we gathered around the picnic table for cake, my parents were 2 hours late with no communication. I called them again. Straight to voicemail. I texted. No response. "Time to make a wish, birthday girl," I announced with forced cheerfulness as I lit the candles on Lily's cake. Everyone sang happy birthday, but Lily's smile didn't reach her eyes. When she blew out her candles, I knew exactly what she had wished for, and it broke my heart. The party ended at 3. As the last guest left, Lily sat on a swing, gently rocking back and forth. "They forgot about me, didn't they?" she asked in a small voice. "No, honey. I'm sure something important came up," I said, though I was struggling to believe it myself. "Let's pack up and go home. Maybe they'll be waiting for us there." They weren't. Lily opened her presents with subdued enthusiasm. The dollhouse I'd worked extra shifts to afford barely held her attention. The bicycle remained in the hallway untested. At 7:30 p.m. my phone finally rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I stepped into my bedroom to answer it. "Mom, where were you guys?" Lily was devastated. "Oh, the birthday thing," my mother interrupted casually. "We completely forgot about it. Robert and I were invited to play in a couples tournament at the club. You know how hard it is to get into those things." I was speechless. They had skipped their only grandchild's birthday, an event they'd known about for weeks, to play golf. "You forgot," I finally managed. "I called you multiple times. I left voicemails." "We turn our phones off during tournaments, Stephanie," my father's voice came through. He was apparently on speakerphone. "It's proper etiquette." "Proper etiquette," my voice rose. "What about the proper etiquette of showing up to your granddaughter's birthday party when you promised you would?" "Don't get hysterical," my mother scolded. "There will be other birthdays. She's 7 years old." I was nearly shouting now. "She waited all day for you. She kept asking where you were." "Children are resilient," my father replied dismissively. "She'll get over it." The conversation devolved from there. My parents seemed genuinely perplexed by my anger. When I mentioned the presents and special surprise they'd promised Lily, they exchanged a confused glance before my mother vaguely recalled saying something about maybe getting her a gift. "We'll drop something off this weekend," she said, as if that fixed everything. By the time I hung up, I was shaking with rage and hurt. How could they be so callous about Lily's feelings? This wasn't the first time they'd let her down, but it was certainly the most egregious. When I returned to the living room, Lily was curled up on the couch, clutching the teddy bear my parents had given her for Christmas. "Grandma and Grandpa don't love me anymore, do they?" she whispered. In that moment, something inside me snapped. No one, not even my own parents, was going to make my child feel unloved. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The morning after Lily's birthday, I dropped her off at school with a heavy heart. She'd been unusually quiet during breakfast, picking at her food instead of eating it. When I hugged her goodbye at the school entrance, she clung to me a little longer than usual. "I love you, Lilybug," I whispered into her hair. "More than anything in the whole world." "I love you too, Mommy," she replied softly. "Are we going to Grandma and Grandpa's after school?" The question caught me off guard. It was Thursday, and according to our usual schedule, my parents would pick her up and watch her until I finished my shift at the insurance office. "Not today, sweetheart. I took the afternoon off so we can have some special Mommy Lily time," I improvised, having made no such arrangements. I'd have to call my boss and use one of my precious few personal days, but it would be worth it. "How about we go to that new ice cream place you've been wanting to try?" Her face lit up momentarily but then fell again. "Won't Grandma and Grandpa be mad if I don't go to their house?" The question struck me as odd. Why would Lily be worried about my parents' feelings after they had completely disregarded hers? "Don't worry about that," I assured her. "I'll talk to them." And talk to them I would. After dropping Lily off, I drove straight to my parents' house instead of going to work. I needed answers about their absence yesterday, and I couldn't wait until the weekend. As I pulled into their driveway, I noticed a brand new SUV parked in front of the garage, a luxury model that had to cost at least $60,000. My confusion deepened. My parents had always been comfortable but frugal driving their cars until they practically fell apart. This sudden spending spree made no sense. I used my key to enter through the side door, calling out as I stepped into the kitchen. "Mom, Dad, it's Stephanie." No answer. Their coffee cups sat on the counter still half full. The house was silent except for the hum of the new refrigerator. I wandered into the living room and froze at what I saw. Propped against the wall were 2 sets of golf clubs, not just any clubs but high-end ones with price tags still attached. Next to them sat shopping bags from designer stores I couldn't afford to even browse in. A receipt had fallen out of one bag and I couldn't help but glance at the total $1,897 for a single handbag. My stomach churned. Something wasn't adding up. My parents were retired teachers with modest pensions. They'd always lived comfortably but not extravagantly. Now suddenly, they were buying luxury vehicles, designer clothes, country club memberships, and premium golf equipment. I heard the garage door opening and quickly stepped away from the shopping bags, feeling oddly like an intruder, even though I'd been invited into this house my entire life. My parents entered laughing about something. They stopped short when they saw me. "Stephanie," my mother said, her smile fading. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work?" "I took the day off," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I wanted to talk about yesterday." My father sighed heavily. "Are you still upset about that? We already explained." "You explained nothing," I interrupted, surprising even myself with my firmness. "You promised to be at Lily's birthday party. You knew how important it was to her. And then you didn't show up because you wanted to play golf." "It wasn't just any golf game," my mother protested. "It was a tournament, with prizes." "And what about your granddaughter's tears? What were those worth?" An uncomfortable silence fell. My parents exchanged glances I couldn't interpret. "We've been very generous with our time, Stephanie," my father finally said. "We've rearranged our entire retirement to accommodate you and Lily." "Generous," I echoed, gesturing toward the new golf clubs. "Is that what you call it?" "I pay you $700 a week to watch Lily. That's $2,800 a month, $33,600 a year." Another loaded glance between them. My mother set her purse down on the counter, the new designer purse I'd noticed earlier. "We deserve compensation for putting up with you and your kid," my father stated bluntly, his words hitting me like a physical blow. "Do you have any idea how disruptive it's been having to structure our days around school pickup and drop-off? The things we've had to give up." "Give up?" I repeated incredulously, looking around at their renovated kitchen, the shopping bags, the golf clubs. "It looks to me like you've been gaining quite a lot." "You should be grateful we even agreed to help you," my mother added, her voice taking on the condescending tone I remembered from my teenage years. Most parents would have told their adult daughter to figure it out herself. The pieces were finally clicking into place. The new car, the renovations, the designer clothes, the country club membership, all paid for with the money I'd been giving them. Money I'd worked 2 jobs to earn. Money I'd thought was going toward Lily's care and well-being. "How much time do you actually spend with Lily?" I asked quietly. They shifted uncomfortably. "We're there when we need to be," my father answered vaguely. "That's not what I asked. When I drop her off in the mornings, when you pick her up from school, how much actual time are you spending with her?" More uncomfortable silence. "Jessica Brewer's daughter Emma is usually here," my mother finally admitted, referring to our teenage neighbor. "She helps out with Lily sometimes." Sometimes I pressed. "Most afternoons," my father conceded. "And mornings. She's good with kids." "And how much do you pay Jessica's daughter?" My mother looked away. $10 an hour. The math was devastating. If they were paying Emma $10 an hour for roughly 40 hours a week, that was $400. I was giving them $700. They were pocketing $300 every week, while outsourcing the actual childcare to a teenager. "So where's the other $300 going each week?" I demanded, though the evidence was all around us. "Now, Stephanie," my father began in his patronizing tone, "you're not entitled to micromanage how we spend." "I'm entitled to know that my child is being properly cared for," I shouted, my composure finally breaking. "I'm entitled to know that the money I'm sacrificing for her well-being is actually being used for her. She's fed and supervised," my mother snapped. "What more do you want?" "I want her grandparents to care about her," to spend time with her, to show up to her birthday party. I was trembling now, tears threatening to spill over. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I'm going to pick Lily up from school today, I said with forced steadiness. And we're going to have a conversation about how she spends her time here. Then I'll decide what happens next. My father's face darkened. Don't forget who's been keeping your little life afloat, Stephanie. Without us, you'd be drowning. His threat was implicit, but clear. If I rocked the boat too much, they might withdraw their support, entirely limited as it apparently was. I left without another word, driving aimlessly for nearly an hour to clear my head. When it was time to pick up Lily, I was waiting at the school gate with forced cheerfulness and the promised ice cream outing. Over chocolate sundaes, I gently asked Lily about her time at her grandparents' house. What came out broke my heart all over again. Grandma and Grandpa are usually busy, she said, matter-of-factly licking her spoon. Emma lets me watch TV or play on her phone. Sometimes Grandma and Grandpa leave to go play golf or shopping. They leave while Emma's watching you, Lily nodded. Almost every day. But Emma's nice. She helps me with my homework sometimes. And what about breakfast? Who makes you breakfast before school? I have cereal. Emma pours it for me when she gets there. Each revelation was another twist of the knife. My parents weren't just neglecting Lily's emotional needs, they were physically absent much of the time, leaving her care to a teenager while pocketing my hard-earned money. As Lily chattered on about her favorite TV shows and games on Emma's phone, I made a silent promise to myself and to her. This betrayal wouldn't stand. Something had to change, and it had to change immediately. The next morning, instead of dropping Lily off at my parents' house, I called in sick to work and took her to school myself. After waving goodbye at the gate, I drove to Jessica Brewer's house. I needed to speak with Emma. Jessica answered the door in her nursing scrubs, clearly on her way to work. Stephanie, this is a surprise, she said, checking her watch. Is everything okay? I hope I'm not interrupting, I apologized. I was wondering if I could speak with Emma for a few minutes. Jessica looked confused but called for her daughter. 17-year-old Emma appeared, her expression wary when she saw me. Hi, Mrs. Collins, she said cautiously. Emma, I just wanted to ask you about the time you spend with Lily at my parents' house, I explained, trying to keep my tone conversational. Jessica's confusion deepened. Emma watches Lily. I thought your parents were taking care of her. The confirmation that even Jessica didn't know the full arrangement strengthened my suspicions. May I come in? I asked. I think we have some things to discuss. Over the next half hour, Emma revealed the extent of my parents' deception. She had been watching Lily nearly full-time for months. My parents would be present when I dropped Lily off, but would often leave within minutes of my departure, returning just before I was due to pick her up. They told me not to mention it to you, Emma admitted, looking guilty. They said it would just complicate things and that you had enough to worry about. How much do they pay you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. $10 an hour, she confirmed. Sometimes less if they come home early. And how often are they actually home with Lily? Emma shifted uncomfortably. Not much, honestly. They're usually at the country club or shopping or visiting friends. Sometimes they're home but tell me to keep Lily occupied so they can relax. Thank you for being honest, I said, squeezing her hand. You're not in any trouble. In fact, I'm grateful you've been taking good care of Lily. As I was leaving, Jessica pulled me aside. Stephanie, I had no idea this was happening. If I'd known your parents were dumping Lily on Emma while collecting your money, I would have said something. It's not your fault, I assured her. But I would appreciate it if you didn't mention this conversation to my parents just yet. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Of course, she promised. And for what it's worth, Emma's always said Lily is a wonderful child. She genuinely enjoys spending time with her. That was small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. My next stop was my parents' neighborhood. I parked down the street from their house and waited. Sure enough, at 9:15 a.m., their new SUV backed out of the driveway. I followed at a distance as they drove, not to run errands or handle emergencies, but directly to the country club. I sat in my car in the parking lot taking photos of their car and noting the time. Then I drove to the mall where my mother liked to shop. I walked through the high-end stores collecting business cards and asking casual questions about my parents' recent purchases. "Oh, the Collinses," exclaimed a saleswoman at the designer boutique. "They've been in 3 times this month. Mrs. Collins just bought that lovely handbag on Tuesday, the one in the window." At the home improvement store, I learned about their kitchen renovation. At the electronics store, I discovered they'd recently purchased a new 75-inch smart TV and home theater system. On my lunch break, I called the country club pretending to be my mother's assistant. "Mrs. Collins asked me to confirm her tea time for tomorrow," I said pleasantly. "Of course," replied the receptionist. "Mr. and Mrs. Collins are scheduled for 10 a.m., same as their regular Tuesday and Thursday slots." Regular slots. While Lily was at school and I was at work believing my daughter was being lovingly cared for by her grandparents. After work, I picked Lily up from school and took her for a drive. "Sweetie, I need you to be really honest with me about something, okay? You're not in any trouble, but it's important that you tell me the truth." Lily nodded solemnly. "When you're at Grandma and Grandpa's house, what do you usually do? What's a normal day like?" She thought for a moment. "Well, Emma makes me breakfast, then she drives me to school. After school she picks me up and we go back to Grandma and Grandpa's. I do my homework, then I usually watch TV or play games on Emma's phone." "And where are Grandma and Grandpa during this time?" "They're usually not there in the morning," she said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes they're home when I get back from school, but they're often busy or going out." "Do they play with you? Read to you? Help with your homework?" Lily shook her head. "Not really. Grandma sometimes asks about school, but she's usually on her phone. Grandpa watches golf on TV. Do you ever go places with them? To the park or for ice cream?" "No," she said softly. "They say they're too tired from watching me all day." The irony was painful. They were claiming exhaustion from childcare they weren't even providing. "One more question, Lilybug. Are you happy at Grandma and Grandpa's house?" She hesitated, then looked down at her hands. "I miss spending time with you, Mommy. Emma's nice, but she's always texting her friends. And Grandma and Grandpa don't really talk to me much." That night, after Lily was asleep, I spread my evidence across the kitchen table. Photos of my parents' car at the country club when they were supposedly watching Lily. Screenshots of their social media posts showing them at restaurants and shopping malls during childcare hours. Notes from my conversations with Emma and the various store employees. A calendar marking all the times Lily had mentioned being left with Emma. I also did a rough calculation of what I'd paid them over the past 2 years, approximately $67,200. Based on Emma's hours and rate, they had likely spent about $19,200 on actual childcare. The remaining $48,000 had apparently funded their luxury lifestyle. The next day was Saturday. I knew my parents usually played golf in the morning, so I drove to their house around lunchtime. As expected, they were just returning, looking relaxed in their coordinated golf attire. Their smiles vanished when they saw me waiting in their driveway. "We need to talk," I said firmly, "about the money I've been paying you and what it's actually been used for." This again, my father sighed dramatically. "Stephanie, what we do with our money is our business." "It's not your money," I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "It's mine. Money I earned working 2 jobs. Money I paid you specifically to care for Lily. And she's been cared for, hasn't she?" my mother snapped. "Yes, by a 17-year-old you pay a fraction of what I give you." I pulled out my phone and played a recording I'd made the previous day, a conversation where they openly admitted to leaving Lily with Emma most days while collecting full payment from me. Their faces paled. "You recorded us," my father spluttered. That's dishonest," I suggested. "Exploitative, manipulative seems to run in the family." For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine concern in their eyes. Not concern for Lily or for me, but for themselves and their reputation. "What do you want, Stephanie?" my mother asked coldly. "I want the truth. And I want what's best for Lily. which clearly isn't being neglected by the people who are supposed to love her while they spend her mother's money on golf clubs and designer handbags. The confrontation that followed was ugly. They defended their actions, claimed they deserved compensation for the disruption to their lives, accused me of ingratitude and entitlement. But beneath their bluster, I could see they knew they'd been caught. The evidence was too overwhelming to deny. As I left, my father called after me, "Don't forget who has all the power here, Stephanie. Without us, your whole house of cards collapses." His words sent a chill down my spine, because as much as I hated to admit it, he wasn't entirely wrong. Without their childcare, inadequate as it was, how would I manage? How would I keep my jobs, pay my rent, support my daughter? But one thing had become crystal clear: continuing to depend on my parents was not an option. They had betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way, exploiting my vulnerability and neglecting my child. Whatever happened next, I needed to break free from their toxic hold on our lives. 3 days after confronting my parents, I was still struggling to figure out our next steps. I'd called in sick to both jobs, using precious time off to research alternative childcare options. Nothing seemed feasible. Professional daycare centers didn't cover the extended hours I needed and cost even more than what I'd been paying my parents. Private nannies were completely out of my price range. The few after-school programs available had long waiting lists. I was sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by brochures and printouts, fighting back tears of frustration when someone pounded on my apartment door. The aggressive knocking made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw my parents standing in the hallway, faces set in identical expressions of indignation. I opened the door cautiously. "Mom, Dad, what are you? Where's our money?" My father pushed past me into the apartment. "It's Monday. You always pay us on Monday." I stared at them in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "Deadly serious," my mother replied, following him in. "We have an arrangement." "An arrangement you've been violating since day one." I closed the door to avoid disturbing the neighbors. "You've been taking my money under false pretenses and neglecting Lily." "Oh, stop being so dramatic," my father scoffed. "The child is fine. She's fed, she's supervised, she's getting to school. What more do you want?" "I want her to be loved and nurtured by her grandparents, not pawned off on a teenager while you two go play golf." "Well, we want our money," my father countered. $700. Today. I shook my head, standing my ground despite my trembling knees. "No, I'm not paying you to neglect my child anymore. The arrangement is over." My mother's eyes narrowed. "And who exactly is going to watch Lily while you work your 2 little jobs? Without us, you're finished, Stephanie." "I'll figure something out," I said, though I had no idea what that would be. My father laughed coldly. "Good luck with that. In the meantime, we expect our payment. We've restructured our entire lives around helping you." "Helping me?" I echoed incredulously. "You've been exploiting me, taking my money while leaving my child with a babysitter." "We provided the house, didn't we?" my father retorted. "We're the ones dealing with the noise, the disruption, the responsibility." "What responsibility? You're barely there." The argument escalated, voices rising. I was so focused on standing my ground that I didn't notice the small figure that had appeared in the hallway until she spoke. "Mommy, why is everyone yelling?" We all turned to see Lily standing there in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She had been napping in her room the last day of calm before I had to figure out our new childcare situation. "It's nothing, sweetie." I tried to reassure her, moving to shield her from my parents' anger. "Grandma and Grandpa were just leaving." "Oh, don't pull that protective mother act now," my mother sneered. "If you really cared about Lily's well-being, you'd pay us what you owe. After all, she's the one who'll suffer when you can't work." Lily's eyes widened. "Is something wrong with me, Mommy?" "No, baby, nothing's wrong with you," I assured her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "There's plenty wrong with your mother, though," my father muttered. "Ungrateful, entitled." "That's enough," I snapped. "Not in front of Lily." "The child should know what kind of mother she has," my father continued, his voice rising again. "One who can't even support her properly without handouts from her parents." They're not handouts if I'm paying you, I countered. And you're hardly supporting us when you're pocketing most of the money. Lily is just another burden, my father declared, gesturing dismissively toward my daughter. Another mouth to feed, another problem to solve. Just like her mother. The room fell silent. Lily's small body tensed against mine, and I felt her start to tremble. In that moment, something inside me hardened into unbreakable resolve. No one, not even my own parents, would speak about my child that way. Get out, I said, my voice deadly quiet. Get out of our home right now. Not without our money, my mother insisted. I reached for my phone. Leave or I start making calls. To Emma's parents. To your friends at the country club. To everyone in your social circle. I'll tell them exactly what you've been doing with the money I've been paying you for Lily's care. The threat of public exposure hit home. My parents had always been intensely concerned with appearances. You wouldn't dare, my mother whispered. Try me, I challenged, meeting her gaze steadily. A tense standoff followed, but finally my father grabbed my mother's arm. Let's go, Barbara. She's bluffing. Am I? I pulled up my phone's recording app. Want to find out? They retreated, but not without parting threats. This isn't over, Stephanie, my father warned from the doorway. You need us more than we need you. You'll regret crossing us, my mother added. We can make things very difficult for you. After they left, I turned to find Lily in tears, her small body shaking with sobs. They hate me, she whimpered. Grandma and Grandpa think I'm a burden. I gathered her into my arms, rocking her gently. No, baby, no. They don't hate you. They're just angry at Mommy right now. But Grandpa said. Grandpa was wrong, I said firmly. So wrong. You are the most precious, most wonderful gift in my life. Never, ever a burden. I spent the next hour reassuring Lily, drying her tears and trying to explain the situation in terms a 7-year-old could understand. I told her that Grandma and Grandpa had made some bad choices, and that we wouldn't be going to their house anymore. She was worried about where she would go after school now, and I promised to figure it out. Will we be okay, Mommy? She asked, as I tucked her back into bed for the remainder of her nap. We'll be more than okay, I assured her, smoothing her hair. We have each other, and that's what matters most. But as I closed her bedroom door, the magnitude of our situation crashed down on me. My parents were right about one thing: without their childcare, however inadequate it had been, I couldn't maintain my current work schedule. Without both jobs, I couldn't afford our rent and expenses. The precarious house of cards I'd built to keep us afloat was indeed in danger of collapsing. Yet something had fundamentally shifted inside me during that confrontation. Seeing the cruel dismissal in my father's eyes as he called my daughter a burden, hearing my mother's cold manipulation, I realized that no matter what happened next, I could never again entrust Lily's well-being to people who valued her so little. Whatever the cost, whatever sacrifices lay ahead, we were breaking free from my parents' toxic influence. The question was how to do it without destroying everything else in the process. As if the universe was determined to test my resolve, my phone rang. It was my manager from the insurance office. Stephanie, we need to talk about your absence today. The breaking point had arrived. And there was no going back. I should have known my parents wouldn't simply accept defeat and walk away. They had too much pride, too much invested in maintaining control. Their retaliation began subtly but escalated with frightening speed. The first sign came when I returned to work at the insurance office. My manager Paul called me into his office immediately. Stephanie, I received a concerning phone call yesterday, he began, his expression uncomfortable. From your father. My stomach dropped. My father called you. What did he say? Paul shifted in his chair. He implied that you've been struggling with some personal issues. Said you might be having difficulty managing your responsibilities. That's completely untrue, I protested. Did he mention that we're in the middle of a family dispute, that he's angry because I confronted him about misusing money I paid him? Paul raised his hands placatingly. I'm not getting involved in family matters, Stephanie, but I need to know if there's anything that might affect your work performance. The only thing affecting my work is that I'm trying to arrange new childcare because my previous arrangement fell through. I explained, careful not to overshare. I'm handling it. He seemed relieved but remained wary. Well, that's good to hear. But I should mention that he also spoke with Richard. Richard was the district manager, Paul's boss. What? My voice rose in disbelief. Why would he contact the district manager? Apparently your father and Richard are old golfing buddies, Paul said with a grimace. Small town, you know. The revelation sent ice through my veins. My father's country club connections now made sense in a new, more sinister way. They weren't just about status, they were about building a network he could leverage when needed. I hope you understand that this puts me in an awkward position, Paul continued. Richard has asked me to keep a closer eye on your performance. My performance has been exemplary, I reminded him, fighting to keep my voice steady. I've never missed deadlines, my client feedback is positive, and until this week my attendance was perfect. I know, Paul assured me. Just try not to give anyone reasons to scrutinize you, okay? I left his office feeling like the floor beneath me was crumbling. My job, the primary source of our income, was suddenly precarious through no fault of my own. That evening at the restaurant, I was halfway through my shift when my phone began buzzing repeatedly with texts from Jessica Brewer, Emma's mother. Call me as soon as possible. Emergency with your parents. Heart pounding, I slipped into the break room to call her. Stephanie, your parents just showed up at Lily's school claiming there was a family emergency and they needed to pick her up. What, I gasped. They have no authority to. The school called me since I'm on Lily's emergency contact list, Jessica explained. Your parents told the office they were her guardians. Thankfully, the secretary remembered me picking Lily up with Emma sometimes and called to verify. Is Lily okay? I asked, panic rising. She's fine. She's at our house with Emma now. But Stephanie, your parents made quite a scene when the school refused to release her to them. They threatened to call the police claiming you were an unfit mother. I felt physically ill. They said what? The principal had to escort them off campus, Jessica continued. They were shouting about how you couldn't adequately care for Lily, that you were working too much and neglecting her. The irony was almost too much to bear. Jessica, I can't thank you enough for intervening. I'll be there as soon as my shift ends. No rush, she assured me. Lily's fine here. But Stephanie, your parents seem determined to cause trouble. Be careful. I ended my shift early, apologizing profusely to my manager, and rushed to Jessica's house. Lily was playing board games with Emma, seemingly unaware of the drama that had unfolded. According to Jessica, the school had simply told Lily that there was a mix-up with the pickup arrangements, and Emma had brought her home as usual. I didn't want to frighten her, Jessica explained in a hushed tone. But Stephanie, this is serious. Your parents are making some very troubling allegations. They're retaliating because I confronted them. I explained briefly, outlining the situation. Jessica's expression hardened. That's not just petty, it's cruel. Using a child as a weapon in a family dispute is despicable. I don't think they see it that way, I said wearily. In their minds, they're entitled to control me because they've been helping me. Jessica offered to continue having Emma help with Lily after school while I sorted things out. I gratefully accepted, promising to pay her properly for her time. But my parents' campaign was just beginning. The next morning I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Miss Collins, this is Sandra Wilson from Child Protective Services. We've received a report concerning your daughter Lily that we're obligated to investigate. My blood ran cold. A report? What kind of report? The specifics will be discussed during our home visit, which I'm calling to schedule, she replied professionally. Would tomorrow at 3 p.m. work for you? I agreed in a daze, hanging up just as an email notification appeared on my phone. It was from my landlord informing me that he'd received complaints about excessive noise and possible overcrowding in my apartment and would need to conduct an inspection. The pattern was unmistakable. My parents were systematically attacking every aspect of my life, my job, my childcare, my reputation as a mother, and now my housing. They were trying to prove their point. Without them, my house of cards would indeed collapse. The CPS visit was as invasive as I'd feared. Sandra Wilson was professional but thorough, inspecting our apartment, questioning me about Lily's daily routine, meals, supervision, and schoolwork. She interviewed Lily separately, asking about her relationship with me and her grandparents. The report we received alleges that you leave your daughter alone for extended periods, that there's insufficient food in the home, and that you prioritize work over her basic needs, Sandra explained. None of that is true, I stated firmly. My daughter is never left unsupervised. We have regular meals together, and while I do work 2 jobs, it's precisely to ensure her needs are met. The inspection revealed no evidence of neglect. Our refrigerator was full, Lily's room was clean and well equipped. Her homework was completed and signed. Sandra seemed satisfied but warned me that the case would remain open for now, with follow-up visits possible. As soon as she left, I received another blow. My manager at the restaurant called to inform me that they were reducing my shifts due to customer complaints. What complaints? I asked, bewildered. I've never had a customer complain about my service. He sounded uncomfortable. They weren't direct complaints to the restaurant exactly. They were posted on review sites. Several negative reviews mentioning you specifically, saying you seem distracted and inattentive. I checked the sites later and found the reviews all posted within the last 2 days, all using suspiciously similar language. One even mentioned that I seemed overwhelmed by personal problems, echoing almost verbatim what my father had told my day job manager. By the end of the week, my hours at the restaurant had been cut in half. The landlord's inspection had resulted in a warning about unauthorized occupants, though it was just Lily and me living there. And most alarming of all, I received a certified letter from an attorney representing my parents, formally requesting visitation rights with Lily and suggesting they might pursue temporary guardianship in the best interests of the child. The financial and emotional strain was becoming unbearable. With my restaurant income slashed and my primary job under scrutiny, I was falling behind on bills. The stress was affecting my sleep and my focus. Worst of all, despite my efforts to shield her, Lily was picking up on the tension. She'd started having nightmares and becoming anxious when I left for work, afraid I wouldn't come back. One night, as I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by bills I couldn't pay and legal documents I couldn't afford to fight, Lily padded out of her bedroom in her pajamas. "Mommy, are you crying?" I hastily wiped my eyes. "No, sweetie, I'm just tired. You should be in bed." She climbed into my lap, her small arms wrapping around my neck. "Is it because of Grandma and Grandpa? Are they still mad at us?" "It's complicated, Lilybug." I sighed, holding her close. "Maybe we should just say sorry," she suggested innocently. "Then everything can go back to normal." Her words hit me like a physical blow. Was that what I wanted? To surrender, to apologize for standing up for myself and my child, to return to the exploitative arrangement with my parents just because fighting back was too hard? For a moment, the temptation was overwhelming. It would be so easy to call them, to say I was wrong, to accept their terms. The financial pressure would ease. The attacks on my reputation and livelihood would stop. Lily would stop having nightmares. But at what cost? What lesson would that teach my daughter about standing up to bullies, about self-respect, about healthy relationships? And what would happen the next time I displeased my parents? Their reaction to this confrontation had revealed their true character: vindictive, controlling, willing to harm their own grandchild to punish me for defying them. No, there had to be another way. I just hadn't found it yet. I tucked Lily back into bed, promising her that everything would be all right. As I kissed her forehead, I made a silent vow I would find a solution that didn't involve crawling back to my parents. Somehow we would break free from their toxic influence and build a life based on genuine love and respect, not manipulation and control. The question was how. The turning point came from an unexpected source. 3 weeks into my parents' campaign of retaliation as I was drowning in reduced income and mounting legal threats, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in over a year. "Jessica, is that really you?" Jessica Reynolds, my ex-husband Michael's sister, had been one of my closest friends during my marriage. When Michael and I divorced, family loyalty had compelled her to step back, though she'd always been kind to Lily and me. "Hey Steph," she said, her voice warm but hesitant. "I hope it's okay that I called. Michael mentioned something about your parents filing for visitation rights." My heart sank. Of course my parents would have contacted Michael trying to recruit him to their side. Yes, they're threatening legal action," I admitted warily. "That's what I figured," Jessica sighed. "Look, I know things have been weird between us since the divorce, but I need to tell you something. Your parents called Michael trying to get him to support their case, and the things they were saying didn't add up. They claimed you were neglecting Lily, working all hours, leaving her alone." That doesn't sound like the Stephanie I know. Relief flooded through me at her words. "It's not true, Jess. Not any of it." "I didn't think so," she replied. "Which is why I'm calling. Michael may have his flaws, but he loves Lily. He shut them down immediately and told them he had full confidence in your parenting. Then he called me concerned about what was really going on." I found myself explaining everything: the childcare arrangement, discovering my parents' deception, the financial exploitation, and now their vindictive response to being confronted. "Those manipulative bastards," Jessica muttered when I finished. "Steph, why didn't you reach out for help?" "I didn't think anyone would believe me," I admitted. "And honestly, I was embarrassed. I should have seen the signs earlier." "Stop that right now," she said firmly. "You trusted your parents to care about their grandchild. That's not naive. That's normal. They're the ones who should be ashamed." We talked for nearly an hour. By the end of the conversation, Jessica had volunteered to help with Lily's after-school care 3 days a week as she worked from home and lived just 20 minutes from us. "Are you sure?" I asked, hardly daring to believe it. "It's a lot to take on." "I miss my niece," Jessica said simply. "And I've missed you too, Steph. Let me help." The next day I received another unexpected ally. Ryan Matthews, a former colleague from my Boston job, had recently moved to our town to work remotely. He reached out after seeing my increasingly desperate posts on social media about needing childcare and legal advice. Grandparents' rights vary by state, but they generally need to prove that denying visitation would harm the child, Ryan explained over coffee. His wife was a family law attorney in Boston, and he'd consulted her about my situation. "They're claiming I'm an unfit mother," I said, the words still painful to speak aloud. "Which they'd have to prove in court," Ryan pointed out. "From what you've told me, all the evidence suggests the opposite. You're working multiple jobs to support Lily. You arranged what you thought was quality childcare, and when you discovered it wasn't, you took immediate action to protect her." He offered to help me draft a formal response to my parents' legal threats outlining their deception and subsequent retaliation. It wouldn't stop them completely, but it might make them think twice about pursuing a costly legal battle they weren't guaranteed to win. With Jessica helping with childcare and Ryan providing legal guidance, I felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. But my employment and housing situations were still precarious. That's when my community truly stepped up. Miss Patterson, our elderly neighbor who had attended Lily's birthday party, began bringing over home-cooked meals 3 times a week. "I always make too much anyway," she insisted when I tried to thank her. "And that little girl of yours needs proper feeding, not just restaurant leftovers." 2 mothers from Lily's class reached out after hearing rumors about our situation, offering to include Lily in their carpool and after-school activities. "We all struggle sometimes," one of them told me. "Single parenting is hard enough without family adding to the burden." Lily's teacher, Mrs. Gonzalez, provided documentation of Lily's excellent attendance, completed homework, and overall well-being at school. "If anyone questions your parenting," she said firmly, "they can talk to me. Lily is thriving academically and socially, despite the challenges at home." Even my workplace situations began to improve. After several weeks of scrutiny, Paul, my manager at the insurance office, called me in for another meeting. I braced myself for bad news, but his expression was sympathetic rather than stern. "Stephanie, I owe you an apology," he began. "I should have trusted my own observations of your work rather than listening to outside influences." It turned out that Richard, the district manager, had made some inquiries about my parents after their persistent calls. What he discovered about their behavior had raised red flags. "Richard plays golf with your father." "Yes, but he's not blind," Paul explained. "Your father's obsession with undermining you started to seem unhealthy." When Richard mentioned it to other club members, he heard some concerning stories about your parents' spending habits and the way they talk about you and Lily. The insurance office offered me a modified schedule that would allow me to work partly from home, reducing my childcare needs. My restaurant manager, after noticing that the suspicious reviews all came from new accounts with no other activity, restored my previous shifts and positioned me in the most lucrative sections to help me recover financially. Perhaps most unexpectedly, I found support in a single parents group that met weekly at the local community center. On Jessica's recommendation, I attended a meeting feeling awkward and out of place. But as other parents shared their stories of financial struggles, difficult ex-partners, and family conflicts, I realized I wasn't alone. The group leader, Rachel, had experienced similar manipulation from her own mother after her divorce. "Toxic parents see your vulnerability as an opportunity to regain control," she explained during one session. "When you assert boundaries, they interpret it as a betrayal because they believe they're entitled to control you." With the group's guidance, I developed a comprehensive plan to stabilize our lives. We created budget spreadsheets, childcare rotations, and strategies for dealing with my parents' continued attempts at interference. Rachel connected me with affordable legal resources to respond to the visitation threats. Other members shared job leads, childcare swaps, and emotional support. For the first time since confronting my parents, I felt like I was standing on solid ground rather than quicksand. The house of cards my father had threatened to collapse was being rebuilt with stronger materials, genuine community, reciprocal support, and honest relationships. Lily noticed the change in our circumstances too. With consistent care from people who genuinely cared about her, her nightmares subsided. Her anxiety decreased as she realized that despite my parents' absence, she was surrounded by loving adults. Jessica's regular presence provided a family connection that helped fill the void left by my parents' betrayal. "I like our new family," Lily remarked one evening as we had dinner with Jessica, Miss Patterson, and Ryan's family. "Everyone's nice and nobody yells. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say." In trying to punish me for setting boundaries, my parents had inadvertently pushed me toward creating something more valuable than the toxic relationship they'd offered: a chosen family based on mutual respect and genuine care. With this support system in place, I felt ready to confront my parents one final time, not from a position of desperation but from one of strength. After 6 weeks of building our new support system and stabilizing our lives, I decided it was time to address the situation with my parents directly. Their legal threats had continued, though with less frequency, as their attorney likely advised them of the weakness of their case. The workplace sabotage had largely failed, but they were still spreading rumors about me in the community. I arranged to meet them at a neutral location, a private room at the local library, with Jessica and Rachel from the support group accompanying me as witnesses. I invited my parents to bring witnesses of their own, wanting to ensure they felt the meeting was fair. When the day arrived, I was nervous but resolute. I'd prepared extensively, gathering documentation of their deception and subsequent retaliation. Jessica squeezed my hand reassuringly as we waited in the library meeting room. My parents arrived precisely on time, my father's face set in a familiar expression of self-righteous indignation, my mother's lips pursed disapprovingly. They'd brought 2 friends from the country club, a couple named the Hendersons who had always admired them. "Stephanie," my father acknowledged stiffly, pointedly ignoring Jessica and Rachel. I see you've brought reinforcements. Support, I corrected. Just as you have. We all sat around the large conference table. I'd arranged for water and coffee, trying to create an atmosphere conducive to civil discussion despite the tension crackling in the air. I've asked for this meeting to address the ongoing situation between us. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. What started as a childcare arrangement has devolved into something destructive for everyone involved, especially Lily. If you're concerned about Lily, my mother interjected, you should reconsider your obstinate position. We're only trying to maintain our relationship with our granddaughter. By filing legal actions against me, by trying to get me fired, by calling Child Protective Services with false allegations, I challenged. Mr. Henderson shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Clearly, my parents had not shared the full extent of their actions with their friends. We've done what was necessary to protect our interests, my father stated. And that's exactly the problem, I replied. This should be about Lily's interests, not yours. I opened the folder I'd brought and began methodically presenting my evidence. First, the calculations showing how much money they'd received from me versus how much they'd actually spent on Lily's care. Next, Emma's signed statement detailing how often she'd been left alone with Lily while my parents pursued their own activities. Then screenshots of their social media posts showing them shopping, golfing, or dining out during times they were supposedly caring for Lily. The Hendersons looked increasingly uncomfortable as the evidence mounted. Mrs. Henderson in particular seemed distressed by the financial discrepancies. You paid them $700 a week, she asked, interrupting my presentation. For childcare, they mostly outsource to a teenager. My mother flushed. It wasn't like that, Margaret. We had numerous expenses. Like what? I interjected. Please itemize them, because I've calculated that over the past 2 years you received approximately $67,200 from me. Emma was paid about $19,200 for her time. Where did the remaining $48,000 go? My father attempted to interrupt, but I continued steadily, now presenting evidence of their retaliatory actions, the calls to my employers, the legal threats, the CPS report, the landlord complaint. This isn't just about money, I explained. It's about using financial leverage to control and punish me when I questioned your actions. My father finally exploded. You ungrateful, we took you in when you had nowhere else to go. We rearranged our retirement to accommodate you and your child, and this is how you repay us, by expecting you to actually provide the childcare I was paying for, I asked calmly. By wanting my daughter to be loved and nurtured by her grandparents, not pawned off on a teenager while you spent my money on country club memberships and designer handbags. We deserved compensation, my mother began. For what? Jessica interrupted, speaking for the first time. For allowing your granddaughter to eat cereal in your house. For leaving her with a babysitter while you went shopping. That's not childcare. That's exploitation. My mother turned to the Hendersons, clearly hoping for support. You understand, don't you? After raising children ourselves, we deserve to enjoy our retirement. Taking on a child at our age is exhausting. Mrs. Henderson's expression was troubled. Barbara, you told us you were deeply involved in caring for Lily daily. That you were reading with her, taking her to activities, helping with homework. Well, we supervised, my father attempted. From the golf course, Rachel asked, pulling out printed copies of the country club's check-in records that Ryan had obtained through his contacts. These show you were at the club during school pickup times almost every day for the past 3 months. The Hendersons exchanged glances, their discomfort obvious. They had been brought as character witnesses, but the evidence was making them question their friend's character. Even if all this were true, my father said dismissively, which it's not, the fact remains that without us, Stephanie can't manage. She can't work her jobs and care for Lily without our help. That's where you're wrong, I said confidently. For the past 6 weeks, we've been doing exactly that. Jessica has been helping with after-school care 3 days a week. Lily's school friends' parents handle the other 2. I've adjusted my work schedule at the insurance office to include partial work from home, and we're part of a supportive community of other parents who understand what healthy relationships look like. I pulled out a final document, a formal demand letter drafted with Ryan's help. This outlines what I'm requesting to resolve this situation, I explained, sliding copies across the table. First, a public acknowledgement of the financial arrangement we had and how it was actually implemented. Second, cessation of all attempts to interfere with my employment or housing. Third, withdrawal of the visitation rights, petition, and all other legal threats. And if we refuse, my father challenged, then I'm prepared to pursue legal action of my own, I stated calmly. For fraud, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, I have all the documentation needed, plus witness statements from Emma, Jessica, my employers, and others. You wouldn't dare, my mother whispered, echoing her words from our previous confrontation. I don't want to, I clarified. I'm not trying to punish you or cut you out of Lily's life permanently. I just want accountability and boundaries. Lily deserves grandparents who value her for herself, not as a source of income or control over me. My father started to respond angrily, but Mr. Henderson interrupted him. Robert, I think you and Barbara should consider Stephanie's request seriously, he said quietly. From what I've seen here today, you might not fare well if this went to court. You're taking her side, my father demanded incredulously. I'm not taking sides, Mr. Henderson replied. I'm just suggesting that there appears to be substantial evidence that might be problematic in a legal setting, not to mention within our social circle if it became widely known. The implication was clear. My parents standing in the community, something they valued enormously, would suffer if their actions became public knowledge. My mother, always more pragmatic than my father, recognized the threat to their reputation. Perhaps we've all become too emotional about this situation, she suggested, her tone suddenly conciliatory. Family disagreements can escalate unnecessarily. This isn't just a disagreement, I insisted. This is about fundamental respect and honesty. I trusted you with my child and my financial support, and you betrayed that trust. Then you tried to punish me for calling you on it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Finally, my father spoke, his voice tight with suppressed anger. What exactly do you want from us, Stephanie? I've outlined it in the letter, I replied. But most importantly, I want you to understand that our relationship can only continue if it's based on mutual respect. I'm an adult and a parent. I make my own decisions about my life and my child. If you want to be part of our lives, it needs to be on those terms, not as authorities I must obey, but as family members who genuinely care about our well-being. My parents exchanged glances, communicating silently in that way long-married couples often do. My father's jaw worked as he struggled with his pride. My mother's expression was calculating, likely weighing the social consequences of different responses. We'll need to discuss this privately, she finally said. Of course, I agreed. Take all the time you need to review the letter with your attorney if necessary. I've included my contact information for your response. As the meeting concluded, the Hendersons quickly made their excuses and left clearly uncomfortable with what they'd learned about their friends. My parents followed without further comment, my father's rigid posture and my mother's averted gaze speaking volumes about their internal struggle. After they'd gone, Jessica hugged me tightly. You were amazing, she whispered. Rachel nodded in agreement. You stood your ground without escalating. That's exactly the right approach. I felt drained but oddly peaceful. Regardless of how my parents ultimately responded, I had spoken my truth clearly and calmly. I had defended my boundaries and my daughter's well-being without resorting to their tactics of manipulation and intimidation. Whether they could accept our new reality remained to be seen, but I was no longer dependent on their acceptance. I had built something stronger than their conditional support, a genuine community based on mutual respect and care. As we left the library, I felt lighter than I had in years. The path forward might still hold challenges, but for the first time I was truly walking it on my own terms. 3 months passed before I heard from my parents again. In that time, our new life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Jessica remained a consistent presence, picking Lily up from school 3 days a week and often joining us for dinner. The single parent support group became a valuable resource, providing both practical assistance and emotional validation. My modified work arrangement at the insurance office allowed me to be home when Lily returned from school 2 days a week, precious time together that we both cherished. Financially, things remained tight but manageable. Without the $700 weekly payment to my parents, I was able to reduce my restaurant hours to just 2 shifts per week, giving me more time with Lily and reducing our childcare needs. I'd also started doing some freelance administrative work from home, using skills from my corporate days to supplement our income. Lily was thriving. Her nightmares had stopped entirely, and her teacher reported she was more engaged and confident at school. The rotation of caring adults in her life, Jessica, the other parents from school, Miss Patterson, and members of our support network, had shown her what healthy relationships looked like. One evening in early spring, as Lily and I walked home from the park, I noticed a familiar car parked near our apartment building. My parents sat inside, not approaching but clearly waiting. Lily spotted them too, and gripped my hand tighter. "Is that Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes, honey. Would you like to say hello to them?" She considered this carefully. "Will they be mean again?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But I'll be with you the whole time and we can leave whenever you want." She nodded bravely. "Okay." We approached the car together. My parents got out when they saw us coming, both looking uncomfortable and older than I remembered. "Stephanie," my father greeted stiffly. "Lily." "Hello," I responded neutrally. "This is unexpected." "We've been reflecting," my mother said, "about everything that happened." Lily pressed against my side, watching her grandparents warily. "Perhaps we could talk," my father suggested, gesturing toward a nearby bench. "Just for a few minutes." I checked with Lily, who nodded her consent, and we moved to the bench. My parents sat opposite us, maintaining a respectful distance that felt symbolic of our new relationship. "We've consulted with our attorney," my father began formally, "about your proposal." And I prompted when he hesitated. "We're prepared to comply with your requests," he stated, as if concluding a business negotiation. "We've withdrawn the visitation petition. All other actions have ceased as well." My mother leaned forward slightly. "We've also prepared this," she said, removing an envelope from her purse. "It's a partial repayment, not the full amount you calculated, but a significant portion." I accepted the envelope without opening it. The money, while helpful, wasn't the point. "Thank you," I said simply. "I appreciate you respecting my boundaries." An awkward silence fell. Lily looked between us, confusion evident in her young face. Finally, my mother addressed her directly. "Lily, we've missed you," she said, her voice softer than I'd heard it in months. Lily studied her carefully. "You hurt my feelings when you didn't come to my birthday party," she said, with the direct honesty only children can manage. My mother flinched slightly. "Yes, we did," she admitted. "That was wrong of us." "And Grandpa called me a burden," Lily continued, the hurt still fresh in her memory. My father looked genuinely stricken at the reminder. "I was angry," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "I said something terrible that wasn't true. You're not a burden, Lily. Not ever." The simple acknowledgement seemed to satisfy Lily. "Okay," she said, then added with the resilience of childhood. "Did you know I got all A's on my spelling tests this month?" A tentative conversation began, with Lily cautiously sharing details of her school achievements and activities. My parents listened attentively, responding with appropriate interest. I observed silently, noting the effort they were making to engage on Lily's terms, rather than directing the interaction as they once would have. After about 15 minutes, Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Can we go home now, Mommy? I'm getting hungry." "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, standing up. To my parents I added, "Thank you for coming by." "Would it be possible?" My mother began hesitantly to see Lily occasionally. "Under supervision, of course," she added quickly. "Perhaps at the park, or another public place." I considered the request carefully. Despite everything, they were still Lily's grandparents. Complete estrangement served no one's interests if a healthier relationship was possible. We could try that, I agreed cautiously. Once a month to start for a short visit. We'll see how it goes from there. They nodded, accepting these terms without protest, a significant shift from their previous sense of entitlement. As we prepared to leave, my father cleared his throat awkwardly. Stephanie, that is I. He struggled visibly with what he wanted to say. It's all right, I said, not needing or expecting a full apology yet. This is a start. Let's see where it goes. Walking away, I felt Lily's small hand in mine, solid and trusting. We had weathered a storm together and emerged stronger for it. The road ahead with my parents would likely have its complications. Deep-seated patterns rarely change overnight, but the power dynamic had fundamentally shifted. They no longer held financial leverage over me. They no longer controlled access to my support system. They no longer dictated the terms of our relationship. Lily's 8th birthday arrived 2 months later. We celebrated at the same park as the previous year, but this time surrounded by genuine friends and our chosen family. Jessica helped decorate. Rachel brought her children to play with Lily. Miss Patterson baked her famous chocolate cake. The parents from Lily's carpool came with their children. My colleagues from both jobs stopped by with gifts and well wishes. My parents attended too, arriving exactly on time with a modestly wrapped present that turned out to be a book Lily had mentioned wanting during one of their supervised visits. They interacted politely with the other adults and spent time talking with Lily about her interests rather than centering themselves. When they left after an appropriate stay, they thanked me for including them, a small gesture that reflected a larger change in perspective. That evening after the party, Lily and I sat on our apartment balcony, enjoying the warm summer air. She had been unusually thoughtful since the celebration ended. "Mommy," she asked suddenly, "will Grandma and Grandpa ever be part of our real family again, like Jessica and Miss Patterson?" The question gave me pause. How to explain the complexity of family relationships, forgiveness, and boundaries to a child? "They'll always be your grandparents," I began carefully. "And they're trying to be better at it now. But real family isn't just about being related by blood. It's about how people treat each other, how they show up when things are hard, how they respect each other's feelings and needs. Like how Jessica helped us, even though she's Uncle Michael's sister, not ours." "Exactly like that," I affirmed. "Real family are the people who love us for who we are, not for what we can do for them, or how we make them look to others." Lily nodded, processing this. "So Grandma and Grandpa might become more like real family if they keep being nice, or they might not." "That's right, honey. We'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, we have lots of people who love us exactly as we are." "I'm glad we don't have to pay Grandma and Grandpa anymore," Lily declared. "That was silly. People shouldn't have to pay family to love them." From the mouths of babes indeed. The simple truth that had taken me 34 years and a painful betrayal to fully understand my 8-year-old daughter had articulated perfectly. "No, they shouldn't," I agreed, hugging her close. "Love should be freely given, not bought and sold." As Lily drifted off to sleep that night, I reflected on our journey. The past year had been the hardest of my life, but also the most transformative. I discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed, built a support network I could truly rely on, and modeled for my daughter what it meant to stand up for yourself even when it was difficult. The financial exploitation had been painful, but the lesson it taught was invaluable. True relationships couldn't be purchased, and genuine support came without price tags or power plays. My parents might never fully understand what they'd done wrong, or how deeply their betrayal had hurt. They might never become the loving, selfless grandparents Lily deserved. But that was no longer within my control, nor was it my responsibility to fix. What mattered was that Lily and I were breaking the cycle. We were creating new patterns based on respect, honesty, and authentic connection. We were learning that family was defined not by obligation or biology, but by consistent care and mutual support. And that lesson was worth every penny. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted your parents or tried to maintain peace at any cost? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of you? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love the most. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength and courage in your own journey toward healthy relationships.